ignored his warning. Days later, a nurse called me telling my affair is in critical condition. Then, sometimes we tend to do things our own way because we want to prove that we can do this the way we want to and the way we feel like. He had addressed the issue of me always going out at night, and I ignored him. My mind was made up. I didn't want to miss out. I had some sort of FOMO, fear of missing out in me. I felt like if I listened to my boyfriend, I would miss out on a good time. Instead of listening to him, I listened to my friends, and now look at what that has got me. How I wish I listened to my boyfriend and not my friends. When I was left alone, when I found him gone, where were the friends that I had listened to? They were long gone also, and I was left all alone, licking my own wounds. I wish I had done differently. Maybe if I had listened for once and obeyed, I wouldn't have found myself in a tough situation that left me confused and depressed. I almost lost myself that time, and I don't want the past to repeat itself. A lot happened, and some got hurt in the process. My name is Nia Reddy, female 24, and my boyfriend is Neo Margot, male 26. Neo and I met through a mutual friend, while my girls and I had gone to one of our male friends' birthday party celebrations in Washington. Neo was Liam's male friend childhood bestie. We didn't know about him up until the day of the party. Neo is a very handsome guy, smart, neat, and sophisticated. He was a fun person. You wouldn't get bored when you were chilling with him. He's very cool, calm, and carefree. But he was also a very short-tempered person. 3 months later, Neo and I started dating. We just couldn't keep our feelings in the closet anymore, so we both confessed our true feelings. Our relationship had its share of ups and downs, but we managed to pull through everything through trust and communication. Our relationship was a bliss. We did everything together. We would sometimes go out together to have some fun alone. He allowed me to be free and to be myself. My love for Neo grew fonder and fonder. I had found a best friend, an advisor, and a lover in him. He was my perfect, imperfect situation. Though he had a tendency of going out whenever he got angry or things didn't go the way he was expecting them or the way he wanted to. Another thing about Neo was that he cannot handle or cope well under pressure, especially if it's relationship pressure. He prefers walking out and coming back when the situation is handleable. We dated for 2 years, but during our 1.5 years, things started changing. Neo became distant. He would sometimes come back from wherever he was coming from, moody and uninterested. Mind you, that time I had moved in with him, I moved in with him on our 6th month of dating. He actually begged me to move in with him because he felt like his apartment was lonely and cold without a female figure. After the whole month of convincing and begging he did, I finally gave in and accepted his request. I was in love with the guy, so I thought, why not accept his request? So I remember one day when Neo was Neo's birthday. I had planned to make a nice, intimate, and romantic dinner for him while I would surprise him with my sexy number that I had bought specially for his birthday. I had cooked. When I say I cooked, I went all out, made all his favorites. I even lit the candles and did those romantic decor things. I made it like a romantic and intimate picnic kind of thing. I waited for Neo that day. I even tried calling him, but he was not answering. In fact, he had switched off his phone when I tried to call him for the 3rd time. From there, I saw that he was somehow ignoring me or avoiding me. I asked myself what was happening with him and asked if I had done something wrong because the way he was acting made me think that maybe I had done something wrong, but I was not aware. I stayed the whole night that time and even dozed off on the couch. The surprise was ruined. The birthday romantic intimate picnic was ruined. He stood me up, which was something he had never done before. I was so disappointed and heartbroken by what he had done. He actually came back the following day later. I didn't even know what to say nor do to him because I was so disappointed. I had wasted all my time and energy for him to make his birthday kind of special. Only for him to stand me up like that was the worst part. To ignore my calls, not just ignoring, but he literally switched off his phone when he saw that I was blowing his phone up. In my mind, I had thought that maybe I was a nuisance to him. Maybe I was no longer the girl that he had fallen in love with. Maybe he was not finding me interesting anymore. All those thoughts kept lingering in my mind. They came rushing like a flood, and whenever they did, I would get crushed. My heart would be torn into tiny pieces. I didn't know if I was going in or going out in Neo's life. A lot was no longer promising, and I was actually waiting for anything to happen between us. I tried being patient with him. I tried addressing the issue with him, and he told me that there was nothing wrong between us. He told me that he was dealing with some work pressure. He apologized for the way he had been behaving and promised to change for the better. As much as I did not believe what he was saying, his apology sounded sincere, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I wanted him to prove himself without me going after him like he was a herded cow. A few days passed, and he didn't change his behavior. Instead, it got worse to a point that we even argued. There's this one time when I was asking him if he no longer feels me or no longer finds me interesting. He asked why I was asking him that. So I told him all the reasons that I thought he wanted to know so he would know his mistakes and rectify them. Instead of him to keep calm and speak with me in a civilized manner, he decided to just burst out. I was so confused by the sudden burst out, so I asked why he was being defensive because I was asking questions, and he had to give me simple answers. The argument went on and on until it reached the peak point where it got heated, and he decided to just walk out on me and go wherever he was going. I was left there shuddered. I missed my friends. Somehow I was starting to regret ever getting into a relationship with Neo because he had no backbone. He didn't know how to stand up for his sh*t, and it was somehow pissing me off and turning me off. One weekend, a friend of mine hosted a party, and that was where I met him, the man I cheated with. He was charming and handsome. He introduced himself as Rick Jody, male, 27. He was really funny, and he knew how to make a person forget their problems. From that moment we met, there was undeniable chemistry between us. He made me forget that I had a very huge and depressing problem in my house. My boyfriend was depressing me to a point that I was sleeping with wine every night. Rick and I talked for hours, and I felt more alive than I had ever been in years. Rick was attentive and complimentary, showering me with affection. He understood a woman's needs and desires, he made me feel like I was a woman again and that I was not the problem. It was a lot, and I was drowning. As we were talking and laughing, Rick started telling me sweet things that would make any woman melt, but then I remembered that I was actually a taken woman. We spoke more about ourselves. I even mentioned the problems I was facing in my relationship. He was kind and understanding, and he listened to me without judgment. He offered me a shoulder to cry on and a sympathetic ear, something that Neo had failed to do. Over time, Rick and I became close friends, and I found myself confiding in him more and more. He was always there for me, and he made me feel seen and heard in a way that Neo had not for years. So we started hanging out as friends, of course. As the months passed, my friendship with Rick grew stronger, and we started to develop feelings for each other. We began an affair, and I found myself feeling alive and desired for the first time in ages. He had that dopamine over me that I was missing, and every moment with him was magical. I loved my boyfriend, but this newfound excitement and admiration was intoxicating. I knew I shouldn't have done this, but the thrill of being desired by someone new was hard to resist. It felt like I was living in another dimension, It was really refreshing. The way Neo didn't pay attention to me, he didn't even notice what was happening in front of his eyes. I had thought he was going to notice some changes in me or the way I was always out. I was no longer spending much time in the house, especially during weekends. I was always out with either Rich or by myself. That was how ignorant he was. I would always wonder what was happening in his head, but I got tired of being concerned. It was really hurting me that my boyfriend was treating me the way he was treating me. We became more like housemates who share a bedroom and not people in a relationship. I needed his time, attention, and affection, but he was too busy for that. I once had thoughts of him cheating on me or performing adultery on our relationship because of the way he was acting. What was hurting the most was that someone else was giving me the attention I had always longed for, the time I needed and affection, and it was not my boyfriend. Rick was giving me an adrenaline rush, and he was making me happy. Putting a smile on my face and thinking about him would make me giggle. I don't even remember when was the last time I had felt like that. I was sure that even my soul had a dust of sorrows because I was no longer happy with my boyfriend. Rick had that effect on me that I couldn't even explain, but it was there. Sometimes when my day wasn't a great day, if he didn't call or if I didn't see him at our secret spot, he surely knew what I've been missing. Was I too attached to Rick? Well, I think I was. But another thing, he knew how to explore a woman's body, that I can give him a 10 out of 10. He took me from the apartment to another planet. I felt like I was floating in clouds. That's how much I was enjoying the way he was exploring my body. I loved every moment of it. Besides the kissing skills, the guy had great body exploration skills and good intimate drive. He made me reach my climax within a few minutes, and I don't know how many times I had climaxed. That's how good it was. Months passed, I was still head over heels with the man named Rick. I was untouchable. I didn't even listen to my boyfriend when he tried to warn me about my affair partner. I was too deep in it. Even when my boyfriend tried talking to me, I decided to just end our relationship because I thought he wanted to control me and how I lived my life. I turned my back on the man who truly loved me for me, not knowing that I had dug my own grave. I was a fool, right? I was what they called a gone girl. I didn't need anyone's validation or permission to be with my affair partner. I tried asking him about who he really was because we had never gone into a deeper conversation about our lives and future goals. I mean, Neo's warnings were stuck in my head, but I decided to push them back because of the great intimacy that I get from Rick. The only answer he gave me was, "You don't want to know the real me, but you will find out when the time is right." I didn't understand why he would say that because he knew everything about my life, my relationship with Neo and my family and I. But I knew nothing about his family. When I asked him about it, he told me to stop worrying about things that do not concern me and continue being a good partner, not his mother or lawyer in a courtroom. I let everything slide and moved on from it and continued doing my AP duties. People kept giving me warnings about how bad and dangerous my man was, but I didn't bother myself to listen to them. I thought people were just jealous of my newfound satisfaction and happiness. A few months later, I got pregnant, after we had found out that I was expecting his firstborn child. Guess what he said? He bluntly told me to get rid of the pregnancy because he was not ready for a child, and if I keep it, our affair would be over. I mean, I saw another side of Rick that I didn't even know or wouldn't think it existed. He changed from being the sweetest, romantic, and loving guy to being a whole new formed monster that I can't even describe. Mind you, that time I was just in too deep with the guy. I had even sacrificed my relationship for him. I listened to him and I got rid of the pregnancy even though my conscience was not at ease. Guilt was killing me. I felt like I had committed a deadly sin. Things were no longer the same anymore. It was like I had found Neo 2.0. I once confronted him about his bad behavior and absence. He actually confessed that he had a fiancée that was pregnant and he wouldn't let me destroy his relationship with his fiancée just like I had destroyed mine with Neo. I thought he was drunk, but not everything he spitted. He meant every word because he was sober as a judge. I thought he was joking or he would tell me that he was just pulling my leg, but instead he just left the house after he had spit nonsense to me. He came back the following day and acted like everything was fine. He didn't even bother apologizing. The foolish and naive me forgave him even though I didn't get any apology, but I couldn't stay angry at him. I mean, he was my source of happiness. I thought maybe he was under work pressure, that's why he said what he had said. I couldn't stay angry at him. I loved him, and I trusted him. I know that it was so foolish of me, but I couldn't help it. The guy was giving me so much satisfaction in the bedroom department. That time I missed my ex, Neo, so much I had no one to talk to about what I was facing. I was all alone. The guy was controlling, but I didn't see that because I was caught up in the nest of love and intimacy. I ignored all the signs and red flags that he was showing. I should have acted earlier and left him. I remember this one time when he came back home drunk. He found me on a call with a lady that I was working with at the call center before I resigned. He grabbed my phone and smashed it on the wall. I was confused and scared by his outburst. I couldn't understand why he would snatch my phone and throw it on the wall without saying anything. Do you think I should have left or be patient with him because I loved the man? I mean, I loved what he was offering more. What do you think I should have done? Things escalated to a point where he slapped me. I couldn't believe it. He had said some horrible things to me, but he had never laid a hand on me. That whole week I was not okay, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I should have left that day when he slapped me. He accused me of cheating, saying that I had the nerve to talk to another man when I saw him coming in. He was just a controlling minister with bipolar symptoms. Rick turned out to be like the winter weather. You wouldn't understand him because one minute he was hot and everyone would be happy, and another minute he would be cold as ice. A month passed, he was coming back home, and I was still doing my girlfriend duties. The mistreatment had stopped, or must I say had taken a break, because the only thing he came home for was the food I had cooked for him and sleeping with me. I think he was spending more time with his pregnant fiancée. I was more like a booty call and a maid to him. So one weekend he did something unexpected and shocking. He came home late that night. I had already fallen asleep. I heard noises coming from another room since the apartment was a 3-room apartment. I woke up to check where the noise was coming and to find out that the sounds were coming from the guest room. I opened it to check who was in the room. When I got in, I found him making love to some woman. Can you believe it? He had a pregnant fiancée and I was his girlfriend or AP, but he was busy with other women while I was in the same apartment. I felt really disrespected. I didn't know what to do. I was shocked, shuddered, and heartbroken to a point that I hysterically cried. I left the room immediately after he heard that I was in the room. The buster didn't even bother to follow me. I thought about what the prophet that I had bumped into at the mall the previous day had told me, but I couldn't leave him without a fight. That was when I thought of revenge. I wanted to make him jealous so maybe he would recognize his mistakes and come back to me. I really missed Neo as much as he wasn't perfect, but he was way better than what I had put myself into. I cried till I had no tears left in me. I became bitter, angry, and out for blood. I wanted him to feel the pain he had put me through. I wanted him to get a taste of his own medicine. So I continued being a good submissive affair partner. I was the biggest fool of them all, but I was a shame in a women's generation. I know that, but what would I have done? What would you do if you were in my shoes? There was this day when I decided to be indoors and be a good partner to Rich, so he came back very early that day. And he was on the phone speaking to whoever he was speaking to. I didn't know what he was planning, but I heard him confirming some plans. After he was done with his call, he told me to get ready. We were going out and I should look beautiful. A fool would think he was slowly coming back, but he had planned the worst thing that would change your life. I went with the flow and prepared for the night ahead. I wore the dress that I had bought, hoping to fix things with him. I wanted to surprise him with his favorite dinner, but that didn't happen. The night came, Rick was just in a happy mood that made me suspicious because he hadn't been happy, well, around me. When we got to this private location, there were a lot of people. I knew some of them from his birthday bri. All eyes were on me, some were looking at me with shame or pity. The night on very well until he asked the DJ to stop the music, which got me more confused because I didn't know why I was invited to a party that I didn't know about and what was he going to say since he stopped the music. He started by introducing me as his worst mistake and apologized to the woman that was sitting not far from him. He then went on with his speech. What shocked me to a core was when he called some lady in front, he started by thanking her. I didn't know what was going on, and it seemed like I was the only one in the dark. As I was confused about what was going on, I saw him getting down on his knees, asking for forgiveness and telling her that he wasn't perfect, but he was willing to make all her moments perfect along with their unborn child. I then realized that the lady that was sitting in front was actually his fiancée that he once told me about. My knees got weak in an instant, mind you. I came with him to the party. I had no way to go. So I remained in the proposal remaking party of my affair partner Rick and his woman. I couldn't take it anymore, so I went outside to catch my breath. One of his friends came to me and asked if I was okay. The only thing I did was crying my eyes out. I started having flashbacks of the day when he told me that he had a fiancée, and the lady was more respectful and respected herself than I was. I had been ignoring her ex-boyfriend Neo's warnings about my affair partner Rick for weeks when we were still together and even when I had ended things with Neo. Neo had told me that Rick was not the man I thought he was, that he was reckless and irresponsible, but I wouldn't listen. I was too caught up in the excitement of the affair, the thrill of sneaking around, and the attention Rick gave me. But on a typical Wednesday morning, my phone rang, breaking the silence of my daily routine. I answered, expecting it to be Neo or maybe a telemarketer, but instead, a solemn voice introduced herself as Nurse Jenkins from St. Michael's Hospital. Nia, I'm calling about Rick. He's been in a serious accident and is in critical condition. He's asking for you. My world just stopped. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could do was repeat the nurse's words in my head, trying to make sense of them. How did it happen? Finally, I managed to stammer. There was a car accident. He suffered severe injuries and needs immediate surgery. We need you to come to the hospital as soon as possible. As much as Rick had done me wrong in the worst way possible, but my feelings for him were still there. I still cared. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I couldn't believe this was happening. I had been so blind, so stupid, ignoring Neo's warnings, ignoring my own doubts. I then rushed to the hospital, my heart racing, my mind racing. When I arrived, I was met with the sight of Rick lying in a hospital bed, machines beeping around him, tubes snaking out of his body. Nurse Jenkins approached me, her expression sympathetic. Nia, Rick needs surgery, but there's a chance he might not make it. He's asking for you, but you need to be prepared for the worst. I felt like my world was crashing down around me. I had been so foolish, so reckless, ignoring the warnings, ignoring my own heart. I mean, this person had a fiancé and a baby on the way. Why didn't they call her instead of me? Now I might lose the man I had risked everything for. As I stood there, holding Rick's hand, praying for a miracle, I couldn't help but think of Neo and the warnings I had ignored. If only I had listened. If only I had been stronger. If only I had been patient with Neo and tried to work on our relationship instead of going outside our relationship just because of mere intimacy satisfaction. Few days passed and I was in the apartment going through the omnibus of my favorite telenovela called Elite on Netflix when I heard a knock, and it was police officers. They were looking for my AP, Rick. I told them that he was at the St. Michael's Hospital and he was no longer living in the apartment. They asked me to notify them when he gets better, but they will also go and pay him a visit. My ex-lover who cared about me had warned me about Rick, but I didn't listen and the karma was catching on me. One lazy day, I got a call from Bianca, one of my former co-workers and a friend, telling me to check my social media. When I asked why I must do that, she told me to find out for myself. At that time, I was in the middle of starting my own clothing boutique business and trying to get sponsors. So I logged on, and the first thing that I saw was a video, and most people that I was following were sharing and commenting about it. I opened the video, and to my surprise, it was a video of Rick and I being intimate and a picture of his pregnant fiancée. My tongue got dry in an instant. I also saw that the person who had posted the video was Neo Margot, my so-called ex-boyfriend. I felt like I was losing breath, so I called Bianca and asked her to come to my apartment. My heart was beating abnormally, and the next thing I don't remember what happened because I woke in the hospital bed, with drips and oxygen covering my mouth. The meaning of his name became a true meaning. He was my lesson, the one I'll never forget about. The video was the first thing that came back to my mind when I woke up. I felt like I was suffocating. I had just started fixing my life, and the person I once loved destroyed my life. I lost the sponsor that I had got. I lost customers. My life was no longer the same. I wanted to just end myself. My father came to see me, after everything I had said to them when they told me to be careful and that I should make sure to not lose something that is there for some satisfaction. I was ashamed to look at him, but he took me back home. Even though things were no longer the same as before, I was willing to work on my relationship with my family. I thought I was just making Neo pay for hurting me and my feelings when he changed on me. Mind you, that time I was even thinking of asking for forgiveness for not taking his warning seriously. I had hoped that Neo and I would still fix things, but instead he left me and destroyed my life. As the weeks went by, his condition slowly began to improve. It was a long and arduous road to recovery, but he fought with a resilience that left me in awe. And as I stood by his side, offering him my unwavering support, I knew that this experience had changed me in ways I never could have anticipated. I made a vow to myself that day, a vow to never again ignore the warnings of those who cared about me, to never again let my impulses cloud my judgment. I had learned a harsh lesson in the consequences of my actions, and I was determined to ensure that nothing like this would ever happen again. Slowly but surely, as Rick regained his strength and began to piece his life back together, we both came to terms with the reality of our affair. It was a fleeting moment of passion that had spiraled into a life-altering event, one that had left us both scarred but ultimately wiser. And as we said our goodbyes, our paths diverging once more, I knew that this chapter in my life had come to a close. I had ignored his warning, and it had almost cost me everything. But through the pain and heartache, I had emerged stronger, more self-aware than ever before. As I walked away from the hospital, the weight of my past mistakes lifting from my shoulders, I knew that I would carry this experience with me always. It had been a harsh awakening, a brutal lesson in the consequences of impulsive decisions. But it had also been a catalyst for growth, a reminder of the power of redemption and the resilience of the human spirit. And for that, I would be forever grateful. A few days later, 2 cops came back home and asked to speak to me. I had thought that maybe they had come to deliver some news. I don't know why I was thinking that they were going to deliver some news. Little did I know that the cops were actually not coming to deliver any news, but they were there to make an arrest. Mind you that Time neighbors were watching, some whispering among themselves, some were taking videos. The cop that I couldn't recall his surname told me that I was arrested for fraud and corruption that I had done along with Mr. Rick Jody. You know when you are extremely shocked, to a point that even your body just freezes, mind goes blank, eyes stop blinking, mouth hanging. That was how I was when the cop told me that they were there to arrest me. Everything went back to normal when the other cop was handcuffing me. I couldn't understand. I asked myself, why would they accuse me of such? That part really ripped me apart. My world came crumbling down, hopes gone. 1 month later, I got out, but when I got out, I felt like I was just a walking zombie. My soul had died the moment I was thrown in that holding cell with other inmates like I was a thief. The judge released me on bail, and to tell the truth, I don't even know who paid for my bail. I tried asking, but I was never given any answer, while on another hand, Rick was denied bail. I didn't know that I was involved with the corruption and fraud of a businessman. I missed Neo so much, and I had realized that being away from him made me feel incomplete. As much as he had destroyed my life like he did, but I miss him and how our relationship was. My life was just F*********** D up. Neo had managed to ruin my life just because of an affair that I had with Rick and for ignoring his warnings. On another hand, my friend Bianca just ghosted me and went AWOL. I had no one to vent to or ask help from. I was officially alone, broke and empty. I just didn't know how to recover from the whole thing. Neo had hammered the last nail in my life. He had completely destroyed me, and I had not come back from it. I didn't even have anything under my name besides my driver's license and identity document. Time passed. I even changed my phone number, blocked Neo on social media, and cut off all contact with everyone except for my family. It was a difficult decision, but one that I knew was necessary for my own mental health. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing myself. I went to therapy, joined a support group for survivors of emotional abuse and being arrested, and slowly began to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy. There were days when I couldn't get out of bed, nights when I couldn't sleep. But I pushed through, determined to come out the other side stronger than before. One of the biggest hurdles I faced were coming to terms with my own role in the relationship. I had ignored the warning signs, turned a blind eye to the red flags, and allowed myself to be manipulated and controlled. It was a hard truth to face, but one that I knew I had to confront in order to move forward. Through therapy and self-reflection, I began to understand why I had stayed in the relationship for so long. I realized that I had been seeking validation and love and satisfaction from someone else instead of finding it within myself. I learned to set boundaries, to prioritize my own needs and desires, and to say no to anyone who didn't respect them. As time went on, I started to feel like myself again. I rediscovered my passions, my interests, and my sense of self-worth. I laughed more, smiled more, and felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't experienced in years. And then one day I ran into my affair partner, Rick, with his fiancée and a child, the one who had inadvertently sparked the end of my relationship with Neo. We struck up a conversation, and I found myself opening up to him in a way that I hadn't been able to before. We spoke a lot after his fiancée had excused herself and told Rick that she would find him in a certain restaurant. I was happy at the fact that I got a chance to iron things out with Rick and to ask him why he had involved me in his shenanigans because I was innocent. He explained what happened and I understood. I was arrested because I was involved with him or had an affair with him, not because I was actually involved in fraud with him. He then said that the case was closed because they didn't have enough evidence to keep him in prison. I can proudly say that I am proud of the woman I had become, and I really appreciated that Rick took his time and explained everything to me, and even apologized for the heartache and stress he had caused. I am now living my best life, but I still need some clarifications from Neo. Can you give me any advices?